All right, good afternoon. It is 2:01 p.m. and we will call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. And has there been anyone sign up for public comments? Okay. No one signed up for public comments. We do not need an executive session on item number 3. We'll go to item number 4, a report from the TAC chair. Ms. Moyer, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. I'm going to stand back a little bit. Since your last meeting on June 13th, the TAC has met on June 27th, July 25th, and August 23rd. Our primary focus for those meetings has been discussing the Safe Streets for All federal grant program and project readiness for the regional corridor improvement studies. Item number 8 on your agenda today is discussion and action on the non-federal local match for Campo to apply for a regional safety action plan grant. The legislation clearly identifies the preference for regional safety action plans versus individual plans. The TAC spent time at each of its meetings this summer discussing the SS4A grant program with the conclusion that Campo should submit for a regional plan with co-applicant and partnership participation roles for the membership agencies. At its last meeting, the TAC adopted a formal recommendation for the use of TDCs for local match. Since our meeting, Campo staff has found that TDCs are not an acceptable local match. While not discussed at the TAC level, I believe the committee would support submitting the application under option 1 as the best alternative in order to meet the grant submission deadline. I feel that I can speak for the TAC in thanking Travis County in developing a participation concept for the regional plan. Our second item of focus this summer was the process of selecting corridor segments for the regional corridor improvements. As a reminder, there are more regional corridor segments than there is funding to complete clearance of those studies, those segments. The bylaws of the TAC require the approval of the policy board for creation of committees. Therefore, the TAC respectfully requests the policy board allow the creation of an ad hoc committee to work with Campo staff on this process. And this is covered in your agenda under item 11B. Finally, at our last meeting, your item number 9, discussion on the 10-year transportation plan, was presented to the TAC. The TAC discussion reflected concurrence with the submission of the 10-year plan as proposed by staff. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Moyer?
I have a couple, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councilmember?
Ms. Moyer, so I just want to be clear. I saw that there was $580,000 being proposed for TDC, and the remaining amount would be $2.3 million regarding the Department of Transportation. What occurred, like in the interim between us getting this or whenever the original proposal was made up to all going out, you said that wouldn't be fine as a competent resolution or to this. What occurred from that, and why does that give you, as you put it, feeling the need to say that, hey, listen, I think that all the TAC would agree with you that, yeah, we should go with option 1.
Councilmember, I think Ashby can answer that based upon some information that they found out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So,
Or I tell you,
we're getting feedback from.
I tell you what, why don't we, if it's okay, we can bring that up under item number 8 when we get to that. Is that all right with you?
Perfect.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. So we will move on to item number 5, minutes from the June 13th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I think I heard a second from Mayor Morgan. I can't remember who I heard the first motion from. Judge Oakley. Okay. Okay. So motion by Judge Oakley, second by Mayor Morgan. Any discussion on the minutes? None being seen, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Item number 6, discuss and take appropriate action to authorize Campo Executive Director to begin negotiation on Austin Avenue Corridor Study Contract.
No? All right. So a quick overview on the this study. There you go. Austin Avenue Corridor Study. This is a proposed multimodal corridor study with Campo and the city of Georgetown to help the city develop multimodal solutions along Austin Avenue between Northeast Inner Loop and Southeast Inner Loop through downtown Georgetown and Old Town. And you can see several districts along, different unique districts along the way on the corridor there. So on July 19th, Campo issued a request for proposals for planning services for this study. We received 3 qualifying responses. The proposals were reviewed and scored individually by an evaluation committee and using our standard criteria, which was also defined and of course included with the RFP. The average scores from that evaluation committee are on the screen now. Interviews were not conducted due to the difference in scores between the top-ranked and the second-ranked firm, as you can see. And HDR, the top-ranked firm, has been selected as the preferred contract recipient. So staff requests the Transportation Policy Board authorize Campo Executive Director to negotiate and execute a contract with the top-ranked consultant firm to develop the Austin Avenue Corridor Study. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions on this item? And before we take a vote, I forgot to mention that Commissioner Jones has Mayor Mitchell's proxy. Mayor, do you have any comments?
No, I was going to motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mayor Schrader. Who's got the
Second.
Councilmember Matea, second. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And then item 7 is the interlocal agreement on that same topic.
Yeah. So this is just a quick follow-up to the previous item. This is an interlocal agreement with the City of Georgetown for the Austin Avenue study. The ILA allows for the transfer of Georgetown's local cost share to Campo. And so staff requests the board authorize the chair to execute interlocal agreement with Georgetown for the Austin Avenue corridor study.
Motion by Mayor Schrader, second by Councilmember Matea. Any comments, questions? All right, none being seen. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Item number 8, now to the topic that was brought up during the TAC comments, the Regional Safety Action Plan application for Safe Street grants. Ashby or Chad, who's going to take this one?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah. So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act includes the Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A, grant program to fund plans and projects that will contribute to improvements in safety. To pursue implementation funding, projects and strategies must first appear in a qualifying safety action plan, and the U.S. Department of Transportation encourages regionally coordinated action plan grant applications, for example, through MPOs. So Campo has prepared the materials needed for a regional safety action plan, and we've been working with our local joint applicants, some of the agencies that Lori mentioned earlier, including Travis County, and the intention was that we would use transportation development credits for our local match, since almost all of the funding that an MPO receives is federal, and we can't match federal money with federal money for this grant program. However, we learned very late in the process, we had asked within a day or two of the grant being publicized whether TDCs would be allowed, and only got the answer about 2 weeks ago that TDCs will not be allowed for this program. So we have been considering how we reach that local match of $580,000 for the total project cost of $2.9 million. So that's why we've brought the item here today for further discussion. So in lieu of the transportation development credits, we have these three potential options to discuss. The first would be in-kind services, where we would cite the corridor program work as an in-kind donation. So these are the corridor studies that we're just now initiating throughout the region, and of course safety is a major component of those. It is something that we're handling right now in the development of our TAC subcommittee, where, for instance, how much do we consider safety in identifying the projects and in prioritizing the projects? So safety is definitely part of that program. Another option would be local or state contribution, so direct contribution from local jurisdictions or agencies of the $580,000 match. And then the third option we have, explore non-SS 4A funding. So in this case, Campo would not pursue this regional plan that we have laid out here. That does not preclude other agencies. For example, the City of Austin is submitting an implementation grant. Travis County has been on a separate track to implement, to request a planning grant in the event that TDCs were not allowed, so Travis County would still go forward with that. And then Campo, we would go and look for other funding, other safety funding that we could use to supplement or to help to actually implement those plans and programs. So these are the three options that we have, and I think Ashby, if you wanted to take it.
Thanks, Chad. So, Councilmember Mateer, when the notice originally came out for this grant opportunity, over 2 months ago, we immediately asked U.S. Department of Transportation if the use of toll development credits could be used as the match. And when we, staff, initially read through the program, since it was consistent with what we call Category 7 funding on the Txdot scale, so the Surface Transportation Block Grant money, we thought that could be an eligible use of toll credits. What we found out, so as Chad said a week or so ago, we never heard from USDOT when we sent our inquiry. So we went back and checked the page, their frequently asked questions page on a regular basis, and we checked it again a week and a half ago, and then they had put the response in there but hadn't told us. So the response was no. And the reason being, apparently this program was actually not under the IIJA bill as we thought. It was a standalone program, but it was sort of advertised with this. But because it was not under Title 23 or Title 49 USC, then therefore it could not, we could not use toll credits as the match.
So the discussion is a couple of things. One is local jurisdictions could come up with, that's the second option, either local jurisdictions or Txdot should manna be falling from heaven at that point in time, or the in-kind, but it could be other projects. You've kind of teed up the corridor project as an option, but I think there are safety projects going on in just about every community. It would not necessarily have to be that one, is that correct?
Yes, the reason we're suggesting the corridors program is because the consultants are already, they're sitting in the buildings every month, and it's easy for us to track that because that's already happening.
Yeah, my slight concern with that is I don't want to co-opt that corridor study, because that, I think the board anticipates that is a much bigger picture look than this very narrowly focused issue. And so I think I don't want to, just to come up with a $580,000 match, I don't want to co-opt a $7 million program. If that's, I don't know if anybody else on the board has that same concern, but we've worked a really long time to get where we're going with these corridor, bigger picture concept studies, and so that would be my concern on that regard. Councilmember?
Mayor Pro Tem Alder had a question.
Okay. Councilmember Kitchen, and then Mayor Pro Tem, you'll be next.
My question really has to do, I'd like to understand a little bit better the parameters around the in-kind. In other words, what would that mean to us if we needed to designate those or any other dollars as in-kind donation of services? What is that? Does that limit how those services have to be spent, or what does it mean? Tell us what it means.
Basically, what it means is we would capture the expense that's happening with the existing contract that's related to safety, and we would just show that to USDOT as the in-kind match. So there's no cash moving back and forth.
But the definition of related to safety, how stringent is that, and do we define it or do they define it?
Ultimately, it will be them defining it, but they have not told us how they would define it.
Okay, so it's an unknown at the moment. Okay, is that where your concern is coming from, Chair? Okay.
Because if they turn around and further define it, and it's something very nuanced and specific, then we are left with either going back to the local jurisdictions saying, are you in the local jurisdiction doing safety projects? And again, I think we all are at some level or another. I would suspect every single county and city up here is working on a safety project somewhere. But that does make the bookkeeping more difficult on that. So anybody else have any thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, you were next.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a question. So what are we paying the corridor program from? Where's that money coming from? Is that state money or federal money?
That's the concession payment for 130, so it's strings-free money.
Okay, so one could also say that we could reallocate that money. Instead of saying it was going to the corridor program, we could say it was going to the match. And then if we don't get the program, then it goes back into the corridor program. And maybe there are other options for additional monies for the corridors. Since it's eligible money, it would reduce the corridors temporarily, but it would provide a clearer match.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be hard money. It can be services kind of money, in kind. And so I would hate, again, we have worked for a decade to get to where we are studying corridors, and I don't want to deplete that. And again, my concern may be for nothing. Do you anticipate a time of having more clarity on what in-kind really looks like?
I'm hoping we would know what. So the way I see it playing out, Chair Long, if USDOT decides to award us with a grant, then we'll have to enter into an agreement with them. And my guess is we will work that out before the agreement is executed. And so we would know in enough time to be able to do something with it. The other thing I forgot to mention is, and this would fall under, I guess, under item 2. James Bass, who was the chief financial officer for Txdot and then Txdot executive director before moving over to the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority, told me that there is another pot of money that we didn't know about.
There's the manna from heaven right there.
And this is related to State Highway 130 again, and it's not the concession payment that we're using now. Apparently there's an account in Fund 6 set aside for the Campo board, and a portion of the tolls on segments 5 and 6 go into that account every year for Campo's use. I just found out a week or so ago because I've never seen any documentation.
Where are they keeping it?
So James Bass was saying he thought there was about $30 million in the account. I don't know. So I've sent an email over to Txdot Finance Division asking about the money. I sent that Thursday. I got a response right before this meeting. The response, he misunderstood the question. He thought I meant concession payment again. So I'm going to go back to him again and say, no, this is not the concession payment. This is a separate item. If that turns out to be true, then we may have another option.
So for the sake of this discussion, because we have to make a decision today, because this is due
Wednesday.
like tomorrow, Wednesday, day after tomorrow. So we could, if we are still eligible with broad enough language to say that it will be in-kind services either through Campo or member entities. That way, we're not being pigeonholed into just the Campo dollars. And it's a real long shot that we even get this, so it may be, a lot of discussion for naught. But that way, we're not limited. If it has to be much more specific on safety-related things, then we have to go back to our member communities to say, okay, what are you really doing towards safety? We've got traffic lights and things like that we're doing. And so,
True.
And I know Txdot's got a whole safety program of, signals and all that kind of work. So I feel like we could go back. It would just make bookkeeping a lot harder.
And I think that's a good path forward here. I also think if we go that route and we find out that there's something to this 30 million, we could always go back to DOT and say, hey, we found some cash. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Amy, you had a question.
So just to clarify, so I was at the Chamber of Commerce panel that Chair Walker and I about the moderating, and you mentioned also during that panel last week that you had just recently found out about the pot of money that you were about. Is this the same pot of money?
No, separate pot. That pot of money I mentioned there was federal money. This money is not, because we can't match federal with federal.
Okay. So, because maybe I misunderstood, but I thought during that discussion too, you were mentioning that maybe there was another pot of money that we could use towards the portal study.
Correct.
So potentially we have another pot of money coming in to replenish.
I'm going to ask and see what Txdot tells me.
Okay, so to clarify, I think, at least what I'm hearing, is there consensus to move forward saying that our local match would come from in-kind services either through the Campo work or its member entities? Is that, anybody have any issues with that? Okay, then I will make that in the form of a motion. All right, any further discussion on this item? Clear as mud. Okay, all right, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Item number 9.
Thank you. So I'm Ryan Collins. I'm the short-range planning manager. And this item today, just wanted to bring an information item. We are developing a 10-year transportation plan, and I wanted to just kind of talk about the approach we're taking and why we're doing it and how it fits in kind of into our larger program. So back when, House Bill 20, a lot of y'all are probably familiar with that, but it was passed a few years back. Requires really a performance-based legislative directive for Txdot to use performance measures in the development of their 10-year unified transportation plan. And part of that bill was that MPOs also develop a 10-year transportation plan. So if you look at the actual legislation, it really just says that MPOs develop a 10-year transportation plan. So we've had a lot of discussions internally about what we wanted this transportation plan to look like and what it was for. And what we really realized when you look back in the legislation is that it's really tied to kind of Props 1 and 7 and the spending of state dollars that get allocated in categories 2, 4, and 12. And these are the individually listed projects that are included in the UTP. And so the way we're going to approach this initial development of the 10-year transportation plan is really it's there to provide the support for those regional projects that are individually listed in the Unified Transportation Plan. These are projects that are selected by Txdot, the district, and the commission, but we also are heavily involved with the selection of those projects, particularly Category 2. But this plan, what we've realized is really to formalize our support of the Unified Transportation Plan, and so that's how we're going to approach it. We've decided to keep it as simple as possible, so we're essentially, I think everyone's familiar with the Unified Transportation Plan, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, but I really just want to talk about the fact that this is going to be our 10-year plan. We'll bring a draft back to the policy board at the next policy board meeting, and it's going to include the individually listed projects in the UTP. We're also going to update it annually along with the schedule for the UTP. So talking about the Unified Transportation Program, I think it was a couple of weeks ago that Txdot, the commission, did adopt the 10-year planning documentation. If anyone's not familiar with it, it's their 10-year planning document, and it authorizes project development. It's called Develop Authority for years 5 through 10, and then anything that's in the first years first 4 years have construct authority. But the funding levels, they essentially, the funding levels are based on forecasts of transportation revenue that's potentially available over the 10-year period. So every year when they do the update, they do a new financial forecast for the 10 years, and then they update the project selection that is listed in accordance to state and regional priorities. And so the Transportation Commission does authorize all of the funding amounts every year. There's 12 total categories. They authorize the distribution and then funding on specific projects, which will be listed in our 10-year transportation plan. So that's the approach we're taking. It's really going to support the selection of projects in categories 2, 4, and 12. And so we'll have that brought back to y'all next month. I did want to talk about how that does slot in. The 10-year transportation plan, again, is a state requirement. We're going to update that annually in conjunction with the UTP. And then we've also got our long-range plan and then the transportation improvement program that outlines the first 4 years. I do want to point out that the transportation improvement program does overlap with the first 4 years of the UTP and our 10-year plan. And that's where the funding is actually allocated. So our 10-year transportation plan isn't going to allocate funding. It's really just going to formalize the support of project selection, because we do work with the district on a regular basis throughout the year. Developing the UTP is a annual process. It takes all year. They basically adopt it and then start the process over again. So that's what we'll be doing. That's our approach. And so part of that discussion, hopefully everybody had a chance to watch the commission meeting, I guess a week and a half ago, but inflation has really been a part of that discussion. And actually, I've been wanting to bring this to the policy board, and we felt like this was a good opportunity to talk about how inflation is impacting project selection, specifically in the UTP. So the annual update to the UTP, they bring in an additional forecast year, and typically that additional forecast year of funding is allocated to new projects, so it allows you to add some projects, but this year that funding availability was severely impacted by inflationary pressures. I know we're talking about inflation in every aspect of our lives, but I think it's important to talk specifically about how it's impacting transportation projects in our region. Supply chain disruptions, labor, materials, everything's gotten more expensive, and so that has really impacted our ability to schedule in new projects over that 10-year time period. And so you can see there, you got the statewide bid estimate. These are the monthly lettings, and the increase you see are so we have obviously our project estimates, and then the construction companies bid on these projects, and the bids have been coming in well above what the estimated project cost is. And so you can see the statewide up there for May, June, and July. Obviously they vary, but it's been particularly hard for our region, and particularly impactful for the larger, more complex projects. I think there's a lot of moving parts with the larger projects. You can see the Capital Express South and North projects had bids come in 45% and 43% above the estimated project costs. So almost every major project in our region has been impacted by inflation. This also includes SL 360. I think we had to make some adjustments for the intersection at Courtyard Drive. And then we have 183, the frontage roads that are funded through Category 7. That will likely need an adjustment as well. It's scheduled to let sometimes next year. So really wanted to bring this inflation discussion to the policy board, just to know that it is something that is impacting us. It's going to impact our ability to schedule new projects, and then we've also got deferred projects, particularly in Category 7, so we need to have that discussion when we look to refund those projects. Inflation will have impacted those projects, so I think it's an important thing for our policy board to start thinking about are we going to make those adjustments? Because Txdot, the state, is having to fill in the gap within Capital Express South and North. Those do have some Category 7 policy board funding on it, but the state is making up the difference on those increases. And so that's just something to note as we move forward, this will probably be a discussion item for the next couple of years until things kind of get under control. I do want to point out that normally the inflation rate that's scheduled into project development is 4%, and so it's been much higher, clearly. So just want to make everyone aware of that, and we thought this was a good opportunity to talk about that issue. So I know that's kind of an aside from the 10-year plan, but we thought this was a good opportunity to talk about that.
And Ryan,
so,
if I could, and I think Tucker, if you don't mind expanding a little bit on the Capital Express, because those, if I understand it, you know, those engineer estimates, those are not old estimates. That's relatively new estimates. It's just, it came in that much more above.
The $350 million estimates probably were a year old.
A year old, but I
when
mean, we're not talking 5 years old.
No,
We're talking
no,
just a year.
a year old, and probably the 350 would have been good even around the turn, the beginning of the new year, when we were looking to bid those, but they got delayed. And the estimate for on South was 350. We made up that difference by administratively moving some money around that we were able to under the rules of the commission, what we're able to do there. Based on the South estimate, we increased the North estimate to about $500 million, and it came in just slightly above that, about 50. We had to cover about $6 million, Heather, on North after we increased that. The estimate on the one that opened up in 7, yeah, so we did increase the estimate on North and came in pretty much on target, but just looking back at a year ago, if we would have been able to open bids on these, we'd have saved
$100 million.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. And so we've been able to move the money around to cover that. Now, what we did not move was the Category 7 money that was that this body voted on 2 years ago to put on CapEx Central. We did not move any of that because that would have had to come to this body to make that vote. So we moved around Category 2 and 4 to the maximum flexibility we had on Central to cover the overages on North and South. But we continue to update our estimates going forward, and you can see in the UTP we have several breakout projects now. We're starting to getting down to that level, and each of these will be looked at individually, and the estimates will be updated.
Okay. You know, we're experiencing that on some of the bidding that we're doing for our projects as well, and both on road-related things as well as vertical construction. Does anybody have any questions for Ryan on this particular topic?
I got one, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So Ryan, looking at, boy, this thing is loud. So you gave, hey, no smack talk today on that. We almost won. So I'm looking at May, June, July, and I see the June's the outlier. Is it, given the fact that the number of projects, what do you attribute that to? Because that's a pretty dissimilar number as compared to the other two.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer to that. This was part of the information I got from the TPMP from Txdot, but I can certainly find out. You know, and I think the statewide numbers are, you know, lower because, you know, different projects, less complex projects are being let probably. I'm not sure if y'all, but I can certainly find out and follow up.
Well, I mean, just from a housing perspective and everything else, Central Texas is the most expensive place. So I think we're experiencing it more here than even statewide.
Yeah, absolutely.
My question is just, what do we know about what's happening then to the deferred projects, like out off of 620 and?
So what we're going to do over the next year, well, we're going to work with the project sponsors with deferred projects, specifically with Category 7. We've got a form that they're going to fill out and provide us with that updated information, updated estimates and everything like that, so we know exactly what kind of number we're looking at. When we deferred the Category 7 projects, we've got about $90 million of Category 7 funding that we need to refund. And those are just the estimates that we had back then. This was 2 years ago. And those estimates are actually from 4 years ago, from 2018. So we're going to be asking the sponsors to provide updated estimates. And then at that point, that's where the discussion needs to be had here, I think, is what are we going to do about that difference? Assuming these estimates are probably going to be much higher. because they're deferred for 90 million. Are we looking at 140 million that we need to refund? Because that will impact our ability to schedule out new projects, do another project call for new projects as well. So I know we've got one in Travis County. I think Pierce Lane was, for example, that one's deferred, and it was $22 million in 2018. So I don't know what that estimate will look like now. So that's just something to consider. We'll be working with the sponsors directly to get those estimates, and we'll see where we land.
Okay, just for agenda purposes, while that's loosely related to our 10-year plan, I don't want to get too far off the agenda.
Good point.
I'm playing paralegal again, Tim. So. Council member.
Just a quick question the timing to bring that information back to us.
Well, probably a couple of months.
And then I'll get back on topic.
Yeah, I mean,
we can certainly do that. I mean,
I'm just asking one quick question about timing, that's all.
We'll get with staff and bring this back perhaps at the November meeting. So.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on the 10-year transportation plan?
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
It's Clara. On the UTP, on the website for the 2023, it's showing 429 million of Cap 12 increase, which I guess they just put it all into one here, which brings, I guess, I-35 currently in the UTP to 3.9 plus another 300 million, 4.2 billion. Is that somewhere in the ballpark?
I don't have that memorized, Commissioner. I'm not sure. I can look at it with you afterwards. Heather, can you know what she's asking?
What line item are you looking at in the UTP exactly? Because we've been moving money around on the breakout projects, if you will, and they should total up to the same that was always authorized for the corridor.
It's just page 56 of the UTP that's online, but it's, I guess my question is the 429 that's shown as a Cap 12 increase is the difference between the way you broke it up there between the bid and the estimate. I don't know, 150 and 150, 300, because it says 429.
Are you looking at CapEx North, the increase to it?
For the Capital Express Central.
It's line 10B, Heather.
10B.
10A and 10B.
10A and 10B.
Which I'm not sure what that means, but
10A.
they're both called Capital Express Central. One's listed at 1.55 billion, one's listed at 2.4 billion, and then
So we had
operational improvements is 300 million.
We had administratively moved some money kind of north of Central, and we brought that back, and so that's probably that move right there. We had, in an earlier version of kind of our UTP administrative amendments, we put about, what was it? We actually, programmed a bigger project up in Williamson County, but with all the inflation that we're seeing, we had to move it back to Central.
Yeah, I was just trying to make these numbers somehow correlate to what's on the actual UTP that's online. But
yeah, these are north and south that just went to letting. Those line items you see there are for Central, but they do add up to the total 4.9 that originally was authorized.
Okay, any other questions?
clear as mud.
Yeah. Any other questions on that, that item? Okay, we will move on then to item number 10, the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 10A, the Txdot Safety Work Group has continued to meet. We actually did meet the last month because there was a conflict with the commission meeting time. So our last two meetings have centered around potential funding for metropolitan planning organizations across the state to create safety plans. There has been some talk about the commission giving each MPO in the state $50,000 to do a safety plan. We have a safety plan that we've been working on, as do some others. I don't know quite where this item is today. We have been told that there was going to be an action at the commission meeting last month. That didn't happen. So I'm not sure where that item is. We'll have another meeting before the end of the month, and I'm hoping that will get discussed. In the interim, Txdot is about to kick off a statewide safety campaign, and we Campo staff will be working with them to coordinate a safety education campaign for our region at the same time, and we can also work with any of you as local governments if you want to be part of that campaign as well, so we can get you some more information on that as we get that. But that campaign for the state should be kicking off next month. The Txdot revenue forecasting work group, so I'm on that work group as well, and once a year we meet. We met last month, and we basically certify the financial forecast that the commission uses for the next year's Unified Transportation Program. So not the one that just got approved 2 weeks ago, but the one that will get approved next August of 23. So what's significant about that? So basically what we do is Txdot Finance Division tells us what the revenue estimate is, and they tell us how they got to the revenue estimate. What's significant about this time around is, in my opinion, they've gotten extremely conservative in their revenue forecasting methodology. So what's been happening for at least the last 3 or 4 federal transportation bills is there have been general fund transfers into the Highway Trust Fund to keep the Highway Trust Fund solvent. Txdot Finance Division is assuming that at the end of this federal transportation bill, which is another 4 years, that there will be no more general fund transfers. And so that number goes to 0. And so for the long-range forecast, it has an impact on the forecast. A lot of people think that when the federal bill transportation bill that we're under right now was passed, that there was a fix to the Highway Trust Fund insolvency issue. There was not. That did not happen. It was not included. So if indeed there are no more general fund transfers into the Highway Trust Fund, then it goes insolvent. So seeing that so far there's been no failure to move money over to keep the Highway Trust Fund going, I don't think it's realistic to say that number is going to go to 0. Like I also don't think it's realistic, and I understand that Txdot has restrictions that it has to deal with. For example, Propositions 1 and 7, when those bills, when those propositions end in the late 2020s or early 2030s, they're not assuming revenue past that point because the legislature has not acted yet. I understand why they're assuming that. But my concern is, especially on the portion of it that deals with the Federal General Revenue Fund and the Highway Trust Fund, is, and I'm concerned that we're going to get to a point where every year around June, when Txdot sort of goes through the books again before the fiscal year ends, that they're going to find $500 million or so in revenue, and then we'll get told we got 2 weeks to spend the money, because this is what used to happen before we adjusted the methodology for revenue forecasting, and it seems we've gone back in the other direction again. So I'm telling you all this because I think it is going to be extremely important for this body and for you as local governments to have projects ready to go, so that if we do indeed end up going through this, that you've got something ready to go and you're not at a loss.
Yeah, and just to echo that, there are other MPOs in the state, I think AMPO is one of them, that they focus solely on funding construction-ready projects. And so to echo what Ashby is saying, and I think, I don't know, Commissioner Beckett might be the only one that remembers this, but there was a time where, to Ashby's point, literally we'd have less than a month to make a decision on spending some money. That's how we ended up funding MOPAC the way we did. So I think it's incumbent on us at the local government level to use our local dollars to get projects engineered and ready and have a queue of those, because if this becomes the norm rather than the exception, we might have to make decisions quickly on funding projects. Does anybody have any questions for Ashby on any of those topics?
And then I have a list.
Yeah, and then we've got, go ahead, Ashby, continue on.
So moving on to just sort of an update of what we've been working on the past few months. We are required under federal law to have a certification review every 5 years. And so that certification review with the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration was held on July 26th through 28th. We had a good exchange of information with our federal partners, and we're awaiting the report from them on the certification of our planning process. On August 17th, Chair Long and I were on a panel for the Austin Chamber of Commerce's Regional Mobility Summit, and we were joined by my counterparts from San Antonio and the Killeen Temple MPOs, and I thought we had a really good session and well attended there. On August 27th, Chair Long received the Woman of the Year Award from the Central Texas Chapter of Women in Transportation Seminar, WTS. Then Campo staff continues to work with the Txdot Austin District, the Technical Advisory Committee, and our General Engineering Consultant to advance the work on our quarters program, and we are in discussions with the district office on potential ways to supplement the $7 million that this body allocated to the effort with potential access to a portion of the district's PEP's budget and Txdot's consultants. Then the Smart Track initiative that this body got a report on from the district office back in June has continued to move forward and is taking shape. An external advisory committee was created by the University of Texas's Center for Transportation Research, and we met for the first time this past Friday. So members of the group included representative from Governor Abbott's office, local governments, local transportation entities like Capital Metro and CTRMA, and then the Txdot Austin District and Campo staff, the private sector, and academia. And then lastly, I am working with my counterpart in San Antonio to have a joint meeting of our policy boards in early December. Due to the pandemic, we have not been able to meet jointly for the past 3 years, but we're hoping to rectify that this fall.
All right, thank you, Ashby. I see a hand up down there. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations, Chair Long. I wanted to just ask Ashby, we had spoken briefly about the Txdot Commission's meeting and the additional funding, and I think it was mentioned earlier that there was additional funding for Courtyard to deal with inflation, but there was also some funding for 620, and since Commissioner Howard had brought that up, I was just wondering if you could speak to what that funding was, or if Tucker could.
As part of the UTP update, we did update our estimate on 360 in Westlake and added $9.2 million of the Category 2 money that we had received this coming year to top off the Courtyard project. So that one was funded. We're working on getting those plans ready to go to let in a few years, and updating that estimate. We did come in with some higher prices. So that's where the 9.2 on Courtyard was moved. As far as 620, those projects are still in a deferment, and we'll look for future opportunities as we get Category 2, 4, or 7 in future years to refund those. So they're not funded right now, but we continue development on those projects and working on design. I think we're even looking at right-of-way acquisition on those, because we do have environmental clearance on them, and working with the cities of Bee Cave and Lakeway to get those refunded.
Great. I'm now representing that area, and I'm learning a lot more about the needs over there, and there's strong demand for significant improvements. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I am remiss I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting, but to welcome Matt Harris to our board. If y'all remember, we appointed Matt to the Cap Metro board, and Cap Metro returned the favor and appointed Matt back to our board. So Matt's the new Terry. Welcome.
Hey, new Terry.
Thank you. Whoop.
Yeah, up is talking, down is not, so.
Well, this is a switch, but anyway, thank you, everybody. I look forward to working with everyone here. I guess I get my nameplate when I get the initiation or
Yeah.
something.
If y'all haven't had an opportunity to introduce yourself, make sure you do after the meeting, please. Thank you, and welcome, Matt.
Chair Long, I did have a question for Ashby, if we can go back to that when you're finished, maybe, or
On which item?
his report.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Just about, talking about we should get ready with local dollars, get local projects ready. And, a lot of us spent the summer going to our different county associations, and they all told the counties to get ready. I'm sure the cities hear the same thing, to go after the federal dollars that are going to be, available to the local level. And I know you and I have had one conversation about federal dollars, but is there anything that Campo can do to really assist the local communities in understanding what dollars are right for what kinds of projects? It seems like we're all sort of, it's an exciting time, but it's overwhelming to know what's real.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. So the short answer is yes. So as these programs are being sort of stood up and rolled out, we're trying to collect information on that, and we can distribute that both through this body and through TAC, so that you have the benefit of the information that we have. The difficulty we're having right now is these are brand new programs. USDOT are short-staffed just like we are. And so there's a lot of rushing going on, but things aren't necessarily moving as fast, and in some cases the directions are very unclear.
Okay.
So, but the short answer is yes, we will do our best to get that out. One thing I have asked for from USDOT is a schedule of when they think they might be rolling items out, and then for those things that need to go through a rulemaking process to tell us what those things are, and then when they think they're going to submit them for rulemaking. So we have a sense of what the schedule looks like, and we can get ready, ready for those things. One other thing I will say, Commissioner Howard, there's been a lot of talk about there's all this money is out there on the discretionary side, and it is true, there is new money out there on the discretionary side, but we're losing a lot to inflation, and so the buying power is being reduced quickly.
Ashby, what percentage do you attribute to being lost to inflation?
It depends greatly on where you are, but I would tell you at least 10%, if not more than that.
It's more than that. It's probably 30-40%.
That's something that
because construction inflation is even greater than, groceries.
Well, and that's part of the concern, what the commissioner was bringing up. And we're talking about ready-made projects, shovel-ready projects, get this engineering. But what we consistently hear, particularly from the smaller entities, over and over again, is that they just don't have the money or the capacity to go ahead and get these things run. So if there's anything that we can do to help, I'm I'm just talking about this right on the board right here with that, but that may be something we want to look at, because there's a lot of them who talk about that as an invisible barrier to actually get projects done.
So that's a concern I'm hearing from my counterparts across the country is their smaller jurisdictions either don't have the resources to pull the money together to have somebody write the grant for them, or they can't come up with a match, or both. And so what some of us are trying to do is help DOT figure out a way to make sure that we don't have smaller areas and rural areas getting left behind on this money.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Item number 11, announcements on item 11B. Today I'm announcing as board chair, according to the bylaws, I can appoint subcommittees, and I'm appointing two today. One is to work as a subcommittee with the TAC specifically on the corridors study, to have some folks that have experience with that. And we've emailed those folks, and they've committed to doing that. And those members will be Cole Kitten from the City of Austin, Charlie Watts from Travis County, Will Conley from, who's he represent? Caldwell, sorry. Greg Haley, Burnett, I believe, Amy Robertson, Bastrop, Bob Day, Williamson, and then Txdot. We have a Txdot person on there, right, too?
Yes.
Yeah, Heather, you got voluntold.
It's Heather over there, that's it.
And so these are people specifically for their expertise. So with the exception of Txdot, if there's somebody else that's more corridor, that, but everybody else, we want that person, not a designee, and they've agreed to do that. And then the second ad hoc committee, and that's an ad hoc committee, it's not going to be a long-term standing one, it's just kind of to get to the point to shore up. And, one of the things that I want to reemphasize to Campo staff as well as the TAC, that this is an opportunity for us to look big picture, not just at the immediate here and now safety problems, but looking longer at right-of-way preservation, because if we aren't looking at that and stay solely focused on the immediate, we'll miss the future opportunities. So I think to make sure that the focus of this, we don't focus just on the trees, that we look at the forest. And then the second subcommittee, Campo will be partnering with Txdot in research related to transportation and technology. The Smart Track program is a public-private partnership aimed at advancing the state of practice, the state of the practice and the state of the art in autonomous vehicles, data sharing, transportation, and intelligent transportation systems and policy. And the Txdot Austin District and Campo staff have requested an ad hoc subcommittee of the TAC to provide targeted technical assistance and recommendations, again, back to the full TAC, as well as that other subcommittee will make recommendations back to the full TAC. So I am asking the following individuals, and I believe they've confirmed their willingness at this point to do this. Jim Dale from the City of Austin, Miguel Arellano from Txdot, Gary Hutter from the City of Round Rock. Oh, I'm going to kill this last name. Stefan from Cap.
I don't know how to say that.
Stefan from Cap Metro. I don't even want to try to. But Tracy Brown from the CTRMA, Heidi Westerfield Ross from UT, thank you, Heidi's here today, and Bob Day from Williamson County to that subcommittee as well. So thank you all for being voluntold, but I think those are two exciting opportunities to provide input to the TAC. And then lastly, you will be getting from Kim, I'll ask her to email out Ashby's evaluation that I will ask, again, you submit that back to me, and there'll be instructions in the email, but if you would take the time to fill that out. If you're brand new to the board, don't feel obligated to do that. You might not have had enough experience working with them, but for those who would like to weigh in, please look for an email coming, and then we will get together with the executive committee and conduct that review, and then bring that back to the full board. So look for that coming out. Stay tuned in the near future on that. The next TAC meeting will be September 26th, and our next policy board meeting will be October the 3rd. And I believe that's the end of my announcements. Ashby, did I miss anything?
No.
Okay, so Mayor, we are adjourning this meeting at 3 o'clock. We stand adjourned.
It's about to be 2:37. We're okay.
Have fun. One of those things. Oh, so y'all are hearing something from us. So Txdot district office came to us a couple weeks ago and said they're getting, I think it's $4, but there's a part of it, we need about $9 million a year just for off-system projects. So we're going to be asking them to list all system projects.